different.
Probably would be the case. Trying to be a little bit spicy with the double globals. Couldn't really handle the objective shredding from Splyce. CycloneSpin had a good game with the Shibalanke using his Darkest of Nights. Well-timed in conjunction with Divios' Plux.
Yeah, that's a good point. Let's get into picks and bans for game 2, because totally honestly, I really do feel like it was like kind of just catching them for the loop. I think CLG, Splyce, on paper, I think a lot of people are surprised that Splyce can take games off CLG, but I still would say CLG were the favorites.
They've done it in the past. Their last encounter in the summertime was Splyce winning that 2-0, and then those 3 sets before was all CLG, but it was a scoreline of 2-1. So in all those best of 3 sets, Splyce walked away with at least 1 game win.
CLG, however, have selected to be first pick this time round with them losing that last game, so things may change up a little bit here. Naja and the Morrigan will be the first 2 bans.
Not really too surprised here, knowing that it's Cyno. You don't want to give him the Naja if you're not going to pick it yourself.
And across the way, Hurriwind.
Yeah, CLG, they like the Athena. I wouldn't be surprised if they try to leave that open for themselves.
They will use their second ban, though, to get away that Arplash, just in case that we see TheBest want to run it back a second time, which is always awkward doing it a second time because people can try and pick differently against it. It will be Ratatoska from Splyce. Athena, still open.
Baron and Freya on top of the Athena is open. So you take out one, you're going to get the other 3. But then Chernobog, so that leads, if you pick up Baron, Freya, you're still going to get Athena if you're CLG.
So what did you do with Splyce then? You go for Athena here?
Definitely Freya. I'm not sure about the second one. It's just a preference at this point.
It's open, isn't it? Yeah. There's plenty of options available. Splycer will take that Athena for themselves. Potentially a full dual lane composition there, although we've seen quite a lot of Freya in the mid lane now, less of it in the Hunter role.
It's a lot easier to survive in the dual lane, I would say, trying to avoid the jungler, but you also have kill potential in the mid lane if your jungler has more pressure.
And Discordia then going to get locked in for Hurriwind in response. More than likely in the mid lane this with the Discordia. We've not really seen it in any other role whatsoever. Against Freya, I guess it's not too bad because you can avoid some of the damage and turn it around quite nicely.
You have the immunity frames once you use your leap. Also, importantly, trying to root her in place. I think that's Freya's biggest weakness, the roots. Being able to just keep her in place for the longest duration possible.
Really strange to see Terra Discordia. That means that Splyce will get themselves Baron Samedi as well. Splyce got Freya, Athena, Baron Samedi.
Yes, but CLG have Chernobog, Discordia, Terra. All 3 of those gods or goddesses have roots available to exploit the Freya that just doesn't have that mobility to get out of it.
That's a good point, thinking about the roots and that, because obviously he's just going to force Freya's ultimate time and time again, potentially here. And the question is, will Best play it in the mid lane?
Probably not.
Because Best doesn't play too many.
It doesn't feel like a Best kind of style at all to me.
Which means that we may end up seeing Splyce, have to put that into the dual lane for CycloneSpin. With the Baron Samedi, we'll find out though. Bans coming through is Izanami. That is a potential mid laner as well. We've not seen too much Izanami as of late.
I could see Best playing Izanami more than I could see Best playing the Freya. I think it's very easy to get out of danger in the mid lane with Izanami as opposed to the Freya, so that would be just a safer course of action out of Splyce.
Well, Kamazot's going to be the selection of choice here in response from CLG. Homiefe has made a name for himself on that god once for a couple of times, I will say. And finally, Kuzenbo is back.
Yeah, Kuzenbo with a lot of reflect damage against a Freya and an Izanami. Why not?
Yeah, especially the double taps from Izanami coming through. Erlang Shen, the final pick for Splyce, which can't tell you that's going in the jungle, right?
More than likely. Should be going for Cyno.
That's going to be awkward then. Who you got on this one, Toli? Splyce's composition all over the place again, but then again, it worked out last game.
I like the control from CLG, honestly. Chernobog, Discordia, Terra, and then you have Kuzenbo for the Watery Grave. As long as they don't fall too far behind early, that they should control the mid game.
Funny enough, you mentioned the roots, and those roots can set up Kamazots to land those abilities a little bit easier too, which is one of the crutches of a Kamazots as well. You guys at home, make your vote. Do we get a game 3? Does CLG bounce back? Or does Splyce take us home very early today? This is the 3rd set already. It's time to get it over to the casters though for game 2, CLG versus Splyce.
Thanks, Hindu. Thank you, Anatoly. This could potentially be our last game, but I'm sure CLG don't want to see it happen that way. Splyce up against CLG with an Izanami. A bit of an interesting pick that they have elected to go with here in the Hunter role for Cyclone.
I like it. It's a spicy pick for sure out of CycloneSpin, and Izanami is by no easy measure. The main reason why we tend to not see her a whole lot is because her escape feels a little bit too telegraphed. It's very punishable.
It's a little delayed,
she struggles a bit in team fights because she doesn't have a CC immunity ultimate either, so it can be very easy for teams at a competitive level to just simply target her out and blow her up on the spot before she really has a chance to pop off. And CycloneSpin positioning is key here, but the same can be said for Best on the other end with the mid lane Freya.
That's right. We've seen some Freyas come over here to this Hunter role to try and keep them away from a little bit more of the extra action, but not going to be the concern here for Best as he takes Freya in. But this is what Izanami can do so well, right? She has those autos that go out and return. They hit on the outswing and the backswing, so she's able to clear just so much faster than anybody else. She almost always able to grab lane pressure by herself, especially with that second ability. And Jigz, Snoopy recognize and go right to their purple buff.
I love what Aror chose to do there, though. Just constantly applying pressure, not letting them have an easy time about it in the slightest. And fineokay all the while actually started off on CLG's red buff, a little bit concerned that Splyce's duo would have an opportunity to invade, knowing that Cyclone was going to have the lane pressure on the Izanami.
And he was absolutely right. So because of the way that they started, they were able to defend their own bust. Now that does mean that Cyclone got all that farm by himself in dual lane and pushed the wave up. Aurora missed out on it, and Jigz and Snoopy weren't there, but they were able to keep it from being as bad as it could have been.
On the positive, though, I am excited to see the Homiefe back gameplay. Been a while since we've seen Homie's Camazotz, but he's got a very powerful one for those of you who might not remember. Definitely regarded probably as one of the better Camazotz, if not the best Camazotz player in North America.
And we really don't see much of him anymore. There's a lot of junglers out there who can provide similar damage to the Camazotz, but also like some forms of utility or control. And Camazotz doesn't have a lot of that at his disposal. What he does have, though, is a bunch of survivability, right? He has the heal, he can go up into the sky and deal damage but not take it. I mean, that part of him feels pretty much unmatched.
And Bat Out of Hell has always been one of the more punishing ultimates to try and deal with in a team fighting situation. You group up together, just adds more damage to the pile. You split apart, makes it even easier for Camazotz to isolate you for a solo frag, and that's something that Splyce are going to have to keep in the back of their noggin when they're working their way into the jungle to contest some of these objectives. But that's for a little bit later. Time will tell how this is going to shape up for CLG. Right now, it appears, though, that Splyce getting a little bit of a better end of things, but that's also partially due to the fact that their duo lane just has so much control.
And they might be able to make things better rather than worse. They've got that upgraded Sunder available for Aror. He does drop it here, but they weren't able to find any follow-up because CycloneSpin gets blown right on up, has to retreat.
A little bit concerned.
He was, and I think rightfully so, yeah.
I just thought for a second that there wasn't going to be anybody to stop Snoopy from chasing Cyclone.
He was going to chase him. It was like it was going to happen, but Aurora was able to get in the way and slow that one down. So fortunately, CycloneSpin makes it out of there without having to use up any relics on either side except for the Sunder from Aurora. As they try to go aggressive, they'll grab their own red buff, and they'll have to wait a while before they can go for that kill potential again.
The Homiefe Camazotz pick as well kind of feels like a response towards Cyclone on the Izanami. Maybe CLG not wanting to have to worry about this stealth potential from that fadeaway escape. And the Vampiric Screech will be able to mark Cyclone all across the board for, I believe, right around 12 seconds or so. It's a pretty long time period to have knowledge of where someone is at.
Curious that Homie decided to back here. Didn't want to go for the gank attempt without the ultimate. It looked like Cyclone and Aurora might not have been 100% sure if he was there or not as they moved right up into the lane, but he just goes ahead and backs.
15 seconds, by the way, for vision on possibly stealth character. Not even all the way in stealth. It's just a strong tool, plus you get the additional physical power in your attacks against her, so Homiefe on the hunt, without a doubt.
Stun will land onto Aurora. Root's going to be right there to follow it up, but Snoopy's more concerned with wave clear than Poke, and rightfully so, is able to get that clear in favor of his squad. We can go ahead and follow along with these mid laners, though. Hurriwind, electing not to go with the Mage's Blessing this time, has rushed those full cooldown boots right away, has that extra movement speed, has a little bit extra cooldown to help him out, and enough power that you wouldn't want to shake a stick at either.
And this is a build path we've been seeing more and more of these days. I think it kind of just comes down to how comfortable the mid laner is feeling with their survivability. And I think Hurriwind knows just how dangerous a Freya can be if you get caught up in that whoop. You don't want to experience the burst damage from landing into that procced one out of Freya. And Best certainly primed and ready, and he's been looking for that one also.
Best trying to catch him out. We have seen a lot of Freyas go with like the Book of Thoth, right, to get started out as sort of that big power bank item for them, and then build from there. Plus Freya can run into some mana troubles as well. That can help alleviate it. Not going to be the idea here from Best. Has the Hunter's Blessing for the extra attack on the basic attacks, and goes right into those pen boots.
Pen boots sure to deal a lot of damage, and things have been pretty quiet so far, though, which is kind of to be expected. Splyce, I don't really envision them as being the initiators. I think, if anything, we might see something similar to the last match, even, where CLG were actually the ones trying to start up a lot of the action and then just having things 180 against them. So they're also, I believe, being a little bit more cautious in terms of when and what fights they want to pick.
We saw that from them last game, and it certainly worked out for them without any problem. It was relatively even, I would say, through like the 15 to 17 minute mark or so, right around that Fire Giant fight ended up coming out. Was really when Splyce broke the game open. They might have something happening here again. As TheBest has to go up into the air with Defender of Olympus. Cyno has Defender of Olympus channeled as well. The Golden Apple finds nobody as Jigz gets low in the back end, but CLG continue to press forward. They want Aror, who's low, and Bad to Hell finds first blood.
Homiefe happy to collect that one, but look at Best all the while. He's just handling everybody by his lonesome. Cyno will end up picking up Hurriwind alongside of CycloneSpin, but at what cost? A 1-for-3 exchange so far in favor of CLG.
CycloneSpin is going to at least be able to find the turnaround kill, but that's 4 in total that CLG were able to grab in that fight. They only have to give up 2, so a nice big win for the boys in blue. And Splyce, on the other hand, kind of had to take a seat and wonder about taking those fights around the mid-camps.
And both Hunters actually ended up with 2 kills out of that. The only problem is Snoopy gets to stay in lane and free farm, while Cyclone, he's just now respawning. This is going to create a little bit of an experience gap between Snoopy and Cyclone, but probably not one too much, because Aror actually could end up soloing Snoopy down here.
Absolutely could. He has a ton of damage. Snoopy, if he has that dash available, needs to get towards the wall to extend that range, but Aror is staying right with him. One more auto attack would certainly do it, and he finds it. Snoopy ends up falling to Aror.
One more wave syndrome gets the best of us.
It absolutely does.
I just don't think that Snoopy really believed there was much kill potential there from Aror, but sometimes all it takes is a single taunt to cut off that into darkness, and suddenly you're just out of position and having to try and walk down the lane without boots.
Without boots is the key part for me there as well, Taco, because Aror had his finished off, and Snoopy only just got those tier 2 on the back from the death. So Aror was faster, even with weaving in autos, and was able to find that kill, which is going to help out CycloneSpin a ton. You were just talking about how that was an opportunity for Snoopy to get some farm that CycloneSpin couldn't. Now CycloneSpin gets to enjoy his lead.
A great job by Aror. Aror also being one of the more aggressive supports, arguably, in the league. So no real surprises to see him committing to that kill, as Homiefe will make sure to pick up those oracles alongside of Jigz. Pretty important ward vision as well, especially since it comes for free. They just know Splyce, with the amount of burst damage they have between Freya and Izanami, that Gold Fury could be blown up in a second. So you don't want to have to worry about Splyce getting the jump on you.
And they should be able, for the most part, to make sure that doesn't happen anymore, as they've been able to grab that Oracle Vision for themselves. Snoopy and Homiefe once again grouping up. Homie not going to be able to find Cyclone, though, not that far back in the lane at this point. So as you said, Gold Fury not a realistic option, at least for Splyce. But CLG not really considering it either.
A lot of pings happening there, and I believe that it's Cyclone trying to let his mid laner know, hey, Camazot's spotted over here in the jungle, means he'll probably be swinging his way back around over to mid. If he goes topside, just be on the lookout for it, because it'd be pretty easy, I think, for Homiefe on the Vampiric Bats, should he connect, to take down Best pretty quickly.
Homie was able to come up big for them in that last fight with his ultimate and find that first blood. And that fight up going pretty heavily for them. They were able to get 4 kills on the back of it. But only if he can stay even and relevant, right? Cyno's going to have control with the pin, with the knock-up, with the taunt, and can stay a little alive in these fights. Is Homie going to be able to continue matching that if he's relying so much on damage?
Speaking of which, 2 pretty different build paths chosen here between these junglers. Cyno actually opting for the mask route, as opposed to Homiefe doing a little bit more of a gold investment for that Transcendence. Transcendence can provide a lot of mana sustained, which is ideal for Camazotz. He can be pretty mana costly. but more importantly, the 10% cooldown reduction and the power spike from finishing off this item is what's going to keep Splyce on the edge of their seats.
And that's what Homie's going to be wanting to work with as he does go back and finish it off. He'll be chunking with these abilities, which is the part where Camazots can feel so oppressive, right? When he's able to come in, land both of those kind of narrow line abilities and really burst you down quickly. And if you're still standing, he has the bat out of hell to just chase you down. And that's the sort of path that Homie's building towards, to try and pick someone off. And I got to think Best or CycloneSpin would be his targets.
Probably be the prime targets to go for, without a doubt. And also going to need to rely on Jigz' Earth and Fury, I believe, to really execute the kill in time. And that is one thing that I'm definitely noticing between these two comps. Is Splyce have all their damage up front. You know exactly what they're bringing to the table. Speaking of which, Divios a little bit on the run here, actually trying to make a turnaround happen, but fineokay and Homiefe, they don't want any part. They didn't find the pick onto Divios that they were seeking, and so it's best to just fall back.
Absolutely. They are out of there. As soon as Defender of Olympus came in and Divios started looking for the turnaround. Homie going to go in aggressively. That does force out Valkyrie's discretion from Splyce, and that's essentially free for CLG. They don't have to give up anything for that, so they can come back to Oracles one more time, even try and look at baiting a fight, but they're going to not stick around that Gold Fury pit. Just grab the Oracle Vision and leave.
Best is way too low on mana to want to stick around for much longer, and he also needs to get that back off as soon as possible, because you never know if CLG may be feeling like they have the damage necessary to take down that Gold Fury in time.
I think they could have just now, really, in all honesty.
Little surprised that they don't try to force it, or at least force the fight, knowing
Right.
that Best has the back.
Recognizing, and then again, they got the ult out of him too. Even if he stays, he's not very safe. Life of the party from Divios should help him try and confirm the buff steal, but knock it out, secure fineokay, who's now dashing back towards lane. Yeah, has to use the ultimate to get away from that slow the root, but it's an ult for ult trade, and Cyno might not make it here in time.
Cyno won't be able to help out his jungler in the slightest. Unfortunate loss there for Divios, and it's not over just yet. Hurriwind going to expend that golden apple onto Divios. So much burst damage, and a full-on collapse by CLG is going to be the end of Divios.
But now CycloneSpin is considering going for this Gold Fury. This will be the response from the heavy commit onto the solo side. Snoopy's here, going up into the air. This will be ultimate confirmation that the Gold Fury being looked at. Jigz is here for support. CycloneSpin comes down. The silence goes through. Splyce do secure the Gold Fury and make it back out with their lives.
Great job there, and it's not over just yet. Cyno with a 3-man taunt in, but he has no mana to continue the engagement. fineokay and Homiefe are going to combine forces to take down the Erlang Shen, but the Pyromancer getting a little bit dangerous here. Homiefe will receive the heal just in time, however, so he'll make it out alive. Same can't be said for Snoopy, though. No mana remains, but there's no wave either. Cyclone, as much as he wants this kill, I don't think he's going to be able to find it.
No, but he is going to be able to bully Snoopy out, who already used the ultimate on that attempted Gold Fury defense, so he'll have to walk back. But that Gold Fury does help things out for Splyce a lot. CLG were the ones out in front, but the Gold Fury comes back and kind of closes that gap. The Tier 1 tower and right didn't go down. They had to settle for the Pyromancer on the back end of it. Splyce making sure to keep things close.
I also want to talk about this Bloodforge rush from CycloneSpin. That is a lot of power up front, but more importantly, Izanami is probably one of the only hunters who doesn't really prosper all that much from either Transcendence or Devos. The way that her in-hands work, it's like a boomerang. You get half the damage going forward, half the damage on the return. So it's not the same amount of sustain unless you have that first ability procced for the single in-hands that don't actually cut through the wave. And that's the only time that pretty much Devos would be worthwhile to have. So instead of having to worry about working his damage solely around his first ability, Cyclone just went straight for the Bloodforge because he'll get that health shield and the movement speed plus power. I think that's definitely a lot of bang for your buck here.
Yeah, CycloneSpin should be feeling good, especially because Bloodforge is one of those items that doesn't feel good to build because it can be so expensive and the tier 2 is not that great. But once you have it, you're like, yeah, I have Bloodforge, and you're feeling good because it's like a ton of power that you're able to have. So now that it's finished and CycloneSpin's comfortable, he's certainly glad that that's the route he went and hasn't been under that much pressure until now. Homie looking for him in the jungle. Aror can't find the taunt. Bat out of hell is going to be the response. Waits out the Aegis, but can't find anything more.
This is a really deep investment, though, from CLG. Hurriwind with a nice root taunt in there. Onto Best, Aror, and Cyclone will get the rest of CLG out of danger. But they've still got to be careful here because they know Homiefe doesn't have that bat out of hell. He's very susceptible on the ground right now.
could be a bit of a target, but they also got Beads and Angus out of CycloneSpin. Snoopy, though, is the one who's the target. Cyno goes in aggressively. CycloneSpin finds the shot. Splyce get one more kill. Banish lands on the homie, and Best is right there for the follow-up. Valkyrie's discretion punishes him and puts him into the ground. Splyce finds 2 kills, and now there's no Pyromancer or Gold Fury. Maybe try and force down mid.
Aror still there in the mid lane with Best, and Cyno, however, seems to have his eyes set onto Hurriwind. Egg is going to be forced out thanks to a nice root combo, but it is just way too much burst damage for Hurriwind to handle all by himself. That's going to be another easy pick-off for Splyce, and one by one, the members of CLG are just falling here, and that's not even the end of it. CycloneSpin working on a T2 tower.
Izanami almost unmatched in her ability to shred down these objectives with that steroid, but not going to be able to grab it with Jigz there. But that was 3 kills overall for Splyce. It started off with them catching out Snoopy, then able to find the pick on the homie in the jungle, and getting a 3rd kill on their way back towards that tier 1 tower, which they did grab as well. Splyce coming out looking very strong here these last few minutes, ever since that Gold Fury they grabbed.
CLG just have to be careful about the way that they choose to enter their own jungle. You never know when Cyno is going to be choosing to lurk around here, and that all kind of just starts off from Homiefe getting picked in the first place. There wasn't really anywhere left for him to go. There wasn't really any farm on the map for him to take, so I'm kind of just surprised that he was that far forward. But now, with Best heading back into the mid lane, this is what Homie was really after all along. He just wants his own chances to try and pressure out the Freya pick. It's just Snoopy and Homie need to be careful how deep they're going into this jungle by themselves.
But you might be getting flashbacks to game 1, and I wouldn't fault you for it. Things are very close right around this point in the game, right? And then all of a sudden, Splyce win a couple fights, really just one big fight, and they're able to kind of get that ball rolling, and there wasn't an answer for CLG to answer back. Now we're in a very similar situation. One fight goes Splyce's way. They have a small lead in their favor. It was even up until now, even favoring CLG, but now Splyce are looking strong.
And we haven't really had too much time to spend over there in solo. Things have been pretty quiet ever since that initial gank onto Divios to throw fineokay into a clear lead over this Baron pick. But a lot of these solo frags that Splyce have made happen have come without Divios even ever being involved with the engagement.
He hasn't been tremendously necessary just yet. Neither is fineokay. The 4v4 both teams have been content with as Gold Fury comes right back up. CLG, no, they have to be here to defend this one, Taco, as Gold Fury gets pulled. Taunt lands on Snoopy, Beads forced out very early on. Jigz, he's going to try and force them off the ultimate with the Earth and Fury, and the Apple lands onto Aror, not the ideal target. Best is up in the air, makes it down in the backside, and will be A-okay. Now Cyno is the front line for them, and he has to fall back.
Keep an eye out for Snoopy. He just utilized that Living Nightmare to come back into the fray immediately.
Nice pin.
Divios up into that life of the party, looking to wrap around on some of the members from COG, but he's just trying to peel for his teammates.
Getting a little bit sustained, but now he's been stunned out. Snoopy right there, but just barely finds him over the wall. Snoopy gets the kill on the Divios, 5v4 in CLG's favor, and now they're looking for the Gold Fury, but Defender of Olympus and the engagement from Cyno disrupt everything. He finds it with the pin with a fadeaway shot and takes down Snoopy.
Cyno gonna end up falling in return, though, from some aggression out of Jigz. It's got to be careful, though. CycloneSpin right back into the mix. As long as TheBest is able to keep charging forward, they could be in a good spot here. But no, instead, the reflect damage from fineokay on those shell spikes, plus Homiefe's vampiric bats, end up taking down the Freya.
Now it's a 2v3 in the middle lane. Aror does have the taunt, but that doesn't create enough space. Homiefe takes down CycloneSpin. Aror, the last soldier still standing on the battlefield. CLG answer back to Splyce in their own big way, but they couldn't get the Gold Fury. That Cyno engage with the knockup plus Defender of Olympus is what stopped CLG from getting a Gold Fury that was rightfully theirs.
And here's the problem with that, Finch, is yes, CLG get a lot in terms of experience for taking out 4 members of Splyce, but without being able to create a real lead by taking the Gold Fury, it's kind of still a win in Splyce's book.
It is still, unless they're able to come grab the Gold Fury here now, and it looks like they should be able to. Aror, the only one that's nearby. Divios teleports in and has life of the party. He knows this is happening. Lands the root. Gold Fury still being held for now. CLG confirm it, and now Divios and Aror have to leave. That's a big win for CLG.
And already, Splyce is choosing to not waste any more time. Cyno with Best is going to start pulling away on this Pyromancer. Snoopy, though, looking to stop the two of them, ends up living Nightmare right into darkness, into the wall, just to buy a little bit more time and force the reset.
Auror's the focus from the rest of CLG on the left-hand side. fineokay with the Watery Grave controls him, and Homiefe finishes him. Now Divios does keep Jigz pulled into the coffin, but it's just not enough damage. CLG are kind of spreading this fight apart, and Cyno's gonna fall.
Beautiful job there by fineokay to push the members forward. Best tried to do what he could to put out damage. It's just he's losing so much of his own health bar from the reflect damage out of fineokay.
Tier 1 tower comes down, CLG up about 2,000 gold, and they're positioning like they want to come grab this Pyromancer for themselves. They've got about 3,000 experience in their favor too. I said this is reminiscent of game 1, where around that 18-minute mark, one team would run away with the game. Last time it was Splyce, but maybe this time it'll be CLG. They grab the tier 1 tower in duo lane 2 to add even more gold on top of their lead. CLG are doing a good job of kind of spreading these fights out, forcing two separate fights to happen, and they've been able to win both.
And that's exactly what Splyce needs to be more careful of avoiding, is getting their carries all split apart from each other. You can't just have Best and CycloneSpin off by themselves. If they're alone, it's going to be way too easy for CLG to just pick them apart one by one. They need to make sure that they're staying a little bit better grouped, especially knowing that they have Aror on this Athena to kind of keep everything in line.
They know they've got him there to be the one that facilitates for the team, but they haven't had that opportunity. As you've said, you kind of want to be able to play around that taunt and then have all your damage follow up. But more often than not, Auror's been forced to use that taunt for peel rather than initiation. And that's where CLG want to see that happening every single time, where it's being forced to be used a little bit suboptimally. They're going to keep trying to force that here as they group up near the Fire Giant in the solo lane.
Check it out, CycloneSpin actually selling off that Hunter's Blessing a little bit soon just to finish the chin size, and that's definitely a worthwhile trade-off. And now I want to see just how much more this could possibly benefit the Izanami. I think that Splyce have definitely been having issues with fineokay on the Kuzumbo, not really expecting the reflect damage to be as deadly to their own team.
It's been a problem for them, and we saw it hurting Best earlier on, CycloneSpin as well. He's gone with a somewhat expensive build, but can he make the most? As a great two-man banish comes out from Best. That does mean he has to use Valkyrie's Discretion. Homie takes about half, or nearly half, but heals right back up, and Aror is out. They're also having to fight around the solo lane tower now as fineokay rotates in on the backside. Strife lands. They have a little bit more damage, but they can't do much more.
I absolutely love the countermeasures that CLG are also trying to take right now for the self-sustain from Splyce. Just in case Baron might have been a problem, or Cyno self-heal, Best self-heal. No worries whatsoever with Divine Ruin and a Brawler's Beatstick to your name.
They got those anti-heal tools available to them and trying to keep them in check. At this point, it looks like, at least in terms of the healing that's going on, Jigz is doing plenty of his own. But like you said, just to make sure that the the lifesteal that might be coming out from Best or Cyclone or any of the healing that Divios can do for the squad, those will be limited right from the start. And it's very easy for those to both get applied from Hurriwind and Homie in the fights.
And surprisingly enough, Snoopy also choosing to not fully commit to that T2 tower, maybe thinking there was more than just Aror hanging out alongside that corner. Divios ends up TPing also into the T1 at solo, not really wanting to allow CLG a free chance to strip that one away. They don't want to keep this solo side of the map so exposed because they know that Fire Giant is very open for the taking right now, and CLG could very well choose to just fully siege this objective. And their itemization as well is only benefiting them even more so because the gold lead has started to open up a little bit between these two teams.
Tier 2 tower on the left, we just saw that one go down. 6,500 experience out in front, 5,800 gold in favor of Counter Logic Gaming. And now they are starting to group up a little bit here around this Fire Giant, or at the very least Splyce are, but they're not all there just yet. They're still kind of hanging back. It looks like even though CLG have a nice lead, that they're not really trying to force a big fight around the Fire Giant where the game could just be over on the back end. Gold Fury will be back up here in 15 seconds. That's one more way to incrementally increase the lead, force down another tower or two, could be another way. They're not in a hurry to start this Fire Giant, but it looks like Splyce are. They're going to start pulling it right away. fineokay's nearby. Fire Giant's at half HP. Jigz is coming in to try and defend as well, but Counter Logic Gaming steal the Fire Giant away.
It was wishful thinking all along from Splyce, and now the fight is
no.
on. Cyno trying to handle Hurriwind on the backside, but he's just looking for the escape now because the entire team is getting torn apart on the front end. Homiefe deep into that T2, doesn't even have a care in the world. He'll end up finding Aror and a 4-for-1 exchange on top of stealing away the Fire Giant. This is CLG's moment to shine.
This is a nightmare if you're a Splyce fan at home, but CLG are enjoying every last second of it. Tier 2 tower in mid should come tumbling down. Cyno really the only one who has any hope of defending. CLG have a very good chance to just barrel right on through and take the game here, Taco. Mid Phoenix has been burned very quickly. Cyno would have to be a tremendous hero to 1v5 slow them down. Pin lands on a Snoopy to stop him from going any further into the Titan room, but it's down to half HP already. CLG are going to force a game 3 up against Splyce.
That was a rather abrupt ending to what felt like a relatively close match. Right as the teamfight started to stray a little bit more towards CLG's favor, we saw Splyce just kind of go for the... I don't really know what kind of call I would really want to line that one up to, but...
A little weird.
It was definitely a bit out there. I can respect the choice to commit, though. I'd rather see a team fail in committing as opposed to hesitating.
Well, who was your MVP there from Game 2? Really, it feels like the MVP for CLG was whoever on Splyce made the call to all in that Fire Giant. I mean, they didn't get the objective. They didn't win the fight. It ended right then and there, Taco. And to be honest, I don't think Splyce were so far behind they had to go for a huge Hail Mary or anything like that.
I think that they felt like that would be the ultimate turnaround, and I can't help but agree with them to that extent. It's just sometimes you do have to pan out the risk versus reward situation. In this case, it was very high on both ends. This time around, though, it was just the risk.
Just ends up going in CLG's favor, that coin flip. Well, now we got ourselves a Game 3. CLG up against Splyce. Who's going to find the win? We'll find out in just a moment, but first we'll break it down on the desk.
Well then. We expected a close encounter between these two, Tol, and we're getting it. It's a 1-1 now.
I like the control coming out of CLG that game, and that call from Splyce at the very end was very suspicious. They weren't down that much gold where they had to go for that Hail Mary play whatsoever.
Was it as Hail Mary as you think, though?
I mean, in a 5-on-5 situation where there was no one dead, people were still relatively close to the objective, it's not like they had the absolute vision control that they needed to secure that objective for free. Was a little suspect.
And that ends up giving CLG that win then, so he's back to all square for Game 3. Standout play from that one, hard for me to really call. I think it was a team effort.
There was a lot of good plays from both teams. The game started off with a bang, that 4-for-2 to start things off. A little funny solo kill by Aror onto Snoopy after the fact, where Snoopy got hit by 2 tower shots, like a well-timed taunt, and didn't really have the boots to get away.
No, but I do think there's a couple of team fights there where CLG had the chance to do Gold Fury, but Splyce just kept throwing bodies in it on purpose to make sure they could have, which I think sometimes people underestimate, like, yeah, it's fine to lose a life if they don't get things off of it, and that was the case.
But that situation that you're talking about, they lost 4 members, only getting 1. Granted, they prevented CLG from getting the Gold Fury, but at the end of the day, it's still 4 members that you lost. You're not farming. The enemy is getting more experience under their belt. And against the Freya and also the Izanami, I like fineokay on the Kuzenbo.
And the trolls in chat, they vote for Alpwash, now they vote for Kuzenbo. That's all it is today. That's F-Dot clapping if you can hear in the background. That's what he does, look at that. He pressed
Sumo Slam.
He pressed Sumo Slam, and he gets himself a kill. Cheeky little face for fineokay too. His goal pull is definitely eclectic.